everyone. Welcome to another great episode of Uncanny Media, the show. It's me, your good buddy Spider, your friend, your confidant, I'm not your leader, but I am leading you into a more entertaining future, I suppose. I don't know what any of that was, but welcome, welcome. I'm in a good mood. I was in a kind of like mood earlier when I started my game stream. But playing the game picked me up a little bit. I've had a little bit to drink, and I feel pretty good. I am mentally sound. I am physically falling apart. I'm spiritually bereft. And that about covers it, doesn't it? That about covers it. So what do we got going on? What should we start with? Should we start with the weather report like we always do? The weather report here in Ohio. It's been warm. I wouldn't say it's been ridiculously hot. It was a little hazy today, and I don't know if that's an after effect of the wildfires in Canada. We talked about that last week, but we have not had a day like last week where just you look outside and it's just smoke pouring across the landscape and the smell of things burning. We haven't had that since that week. We had a couple days of that, and then that rolled through. It was stormy today. It was stormy that all early this morning, and I got a bone to pick about that. I got a bone to pick about that. Let's talk about meteorologists for a minute. Weather people. Huh? I've talked about this before. Many episodes ago, I addressed this. But now that it's the future, right? It's 2026, and people other than your local weatherman on your news station of choice, people other than that have access to weather radar and all this kind of gear and all this fantastic stuff, and they have YouTube channels, and they now use these YouTube channels to follow along with bad weather. I've got, and I've talked about this before. These YouTube meteorologists, they are minor celebrities at this point because they started out just like, hey, I'm interested in the weather and I want to help people and that kind of thing. But they've turned it into a spectacle. They've turned it into a thing, and it's become less than it was. And a particular YouTuber that I was subscribed to for a little while, I unsubscribed. I unsubscribed because it became less about the weather and more about, hey, look, I'm a weather guy. I'm telling you all this stuff. Look at how great of a person I am. Hey, blah, blah, blah. Look at these flashy things. And let me get into the details so you know what I'm talking about. I am not going to name the channel because I don't name and shame. Name and shame. I don't know where the ch is coming from. Too many ch's there, brother. Too many pronouns, pal. Anyway, but I'm not going to name the channel because I do not name and shame. It is not my policy. The only time I've talked badly by name of a business or a person was back when I got cease and desisted because I thought that that situation needed addressed. Okay. Other than that, I don't, it's my policy not to do that. You guys know that. I've talked about it before. But the particular YouTube meteorologist that I was following, I followed because his coverage as the weather is happening is good. He's good at sending out warnings and alerts and being like, hey, this is something dangerous. We're plugged in. We've got a tornado warning. You guys need to find shelter. We got severe thunderstorms here. Keep an eye out. He's good at that. So I don't want to tear him down because he's good at that. But the rest of it, when he's making weather predictions, he's frequently wrong. He is frequently wrong because his radar that he uses is supposed to be super sophisticated. It's supposed to be like some of the best you can get. It's supposed to be top of the technological heap, right? It is less useful and less accurate than the basic radar that you get from the weatherchannel.com app. That's just bare bones. That's just to show you, hey, there's potential for storms here. This is the rain coverage. He's got this stuff that shows you the barometric pressure, and it's got this, and it's got this rotation of this, and all these things, and it's usually wrong. And the reason I say that is because when he first makes these predictions, he's not pinpoint. He puts up these graphics that show these wide swaths of areas that he says are in danger. Wide swaths in reds and orange and yellows, the various hazard levels, right? And anytime my state is in this range, I look to see if, okay, is my town in the red? Is my town in the danger zone? And every single time for the last several months that he's shown a graphic that shows my area of Ohio in the red zone, we've had a little bit of rain, a little bit of thunder, and that's it. No hail, no tornadoes, no destruction, maybe a tree limb down here and there, but nothing, not at all what he warns people about. But he puts that up because, oh, you see that, you get frightened, you'll come to him and say, oh, oh. And his motto is, don't be scared, be prepared. But the issue is that he puts up these graphics to scare you into looking at his channel to see what he's talking about. And then what got me to unsubscribe was one particular thing. He has an app-based game, a weather game, okay? Which is pretty innocent. I'm not going to say anything bad about it. But it's a weather game where you can shoot storms with something and attack storms with stuff and blah blah and get points and whatnot. And it's kind of silly. It's kind of you know kind of pointless in my opinion. But people, I'm sure people enjoy it. I don't know. And in the middle of a video covering severe weather outbreaks, he was showcasing this game because it draws off of real weather and real radar and real time stuff. So you can play it while you're watching out for the tornadoes. You can play his game while you're waiting for the tornado to pass by. I thought it was tasteless. I thought it was classless. I thought it was. And on the face of it, it'd be fine, whatever. But people in the comments were like, no, man, this is. Can you get back to the regular weather coverage? And he was like, no, this is the weather coverage because the game was drawing off of the actual radar and things like that because it's live service. And he was defending it fiercely, like, and that was it. I was done. It's a game to him. Like, not his game specifically, but the whole thing now is entertainment to him. He's become less a scientist and less a meteorologist and more, he has become a YouTuber, which is something that I am not. I do things on YouTube and I am very involved with YouTube, but I am not a YouTuber. I am not an internet personality of that persuasion. I am not a person that makes that their entire life, and he's become an entertainer as opposed to a helper. And if I had initially followed him for entertainment, then that wouldn't have been a big deal, but I didn't. I followed him for his insight into the weather, for the warnings, and for various things to keep my home protected, keep my family protected. And that's taken a back seat to the entertainment aspect. So I unsubscribed. I wish him well. He's got far more followers than I do. I mean, he's got a lot of subscribers, and he's obviously making ad revenue and all that good stuff. I'm making ad revenue, not as much as him, But I think that's the trap he fell into. I think he figured I can do things to make more ad revenue, to get more money, and whatever. I don't know. I don't know him personally. Maybe he's not a greedy person. Maybe he legitimately thought that this was a fun thing to do. But the way that he defended it was kind of like, that's kind of tasteless, bro. You're helping people avoid tornadoes and take shelter when there's serious things going on, and you have a game playing while you're doing that. You're showcasing this game. You know, there's a time and a place, sir. And it wasn't the time or the place for what you were doing. So I unsubscribed. I'm pretty good at noticing the weather patterns myself anyway. I follow, like I said, theweatherchannel.com. I follow their basic stock radar stuff that comes up, and generally we're okay. We're generally okay. Bad things could happen, but I think I can figure it out based on the radar. I don't think I need a fancy YouTube meteorologist to tell me when to take shelter. I don't think I need that at this point. I don't think I need it. So, unsubscribed. But the weather, like I said, it's been warm. It's been some storms here and there. Nothing to write home about. Nothing to be upset about. Not a big deal. Been cooler some days. Like right now, it's in the 60s. It's going to be the 60s in the early morning this coming week here in my part of Ohio, which is interesting. Speaking of Ohio, let's talk about the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's been a while. It's been a while since we talked about these guys. They're under new management, they're under new ownership, they're making changes, right? And I've gone on record about my gripes about the Hall of Fame because instead of just being a museum basically showcasing the NFL from its humble beginnings to where it is now, and every year we've had an enshrinement ceremony here in town where they have events and they have stuff and they try to clean up the main areas of town and leave the rest to rot, of course. Um, when they have the celebrities come through. Um, and they add new players to the Hall of Fame and it's a big thing, right? And I've talked about how a separate company that doesn't run the Hall of Fame. This is a key point. It's a separate company that owns an area of land near the Hall of Fame. And they want to create a tourist sensation around the Hall of Fame to draw more people to it, which on the one hand is like, okay, whatever. You got to have some kind of infrastructure. You got to have food for people to eat, that kind of stuff, whatever. But it's gone through several changes, several management levels, several owners. The previous owner of what was called the Hall of Fame Village, which was the space around the Hall of Fame, wanted it to become, quote, the Disneyland of football. They wanted rides, they wanted food, they wanted a hotel, they wanted attractions, okay? But they didn't have the money to cover any of that. And they kept doing various deals, getting grants from the state, getting loans, getting all this stuff. They were a publicly traded company, they had stock, and all of that went right down the toilet. The stock fizzled, got delisted. They they lost a ton of money. And so they voted to become private again, a private company. Which on the one hand, I've said before, is kind of problematic because that way they don't have to tell anyone where the money is coming from. If you're a publicly traded company, you have to have declarations of where your funding is coming from. You have to be accountable to the shareholders. If you are a private company, you do not have to do that, which is a bit shady. But it's been transferred to new ownership, a new developer, and they've decided that they want to focus on the football aspect, which it should have been the whole time. I mean, it's the Pro Football Hall of Fame. right? I mean, why would you want rides and carnival stuff and a big stick to the game? Improve the museum part, make, I don't know, make that the focus. But so they said that we don't want to focus on a carnival atmosphere, we want to focus on the sport. And in doing so, they have sold off multiple rides. They had three rides there. They had something called the slingshot, which is like you start at the bottom and then it just shoots you up into the air in the seat, and then you swing back and forth a little bit, and then you go back down. It's a big rush for adrenaline. They had, I don't know what the other one was. I don't remember. I knew what they all were at one point, and I've forgotten. I've never been up there, to be honest. So they had another one, and then they had the Ferris wheel, which was called the Red Zone. Now, this is an interesting series of events. The Red Zone Ferris wheel came from an indoor amusement park in Cleveland called the IX Center, which closed down a few years back. The IX Center was an indoor amusement park with roller coasters, with a Ferris wheel. It was huge. It was massive. It was a big deal in Cleveland, Ohio. And I don't really recall the exact circumstances why it shut down. I think funding, of course, funding and upkeep. It's always come down to money, right? So my town purchased the Ferris wheel to put at their Hall of Fame village because it's an attraction. It's like, oh yeah, this is from the IX Center. This is the Red Zone Ferris wheel. It's big. You could see it from the highway driving by. You could see it because you can see the Hall of Fame from up one point on the highway, and you could see the Ferris wheel. It was an attraction. People would go up there and they'd ride it around, right? Well, as part of the new restructuring, the new rebranding, so to speak, because nobody apparently knows how to rebrand. No one knows how to rebrand. It's a term that I have heard personally from certain people more than once, and they don't know what they're doing. And that seems to be a common thread. People don't know what they're doing with rebranding. But under the auspices of that, the Hall of Fame Village was looking to sell. It sold the other two rides already, okay? And it was looking to sell this Ferris wheel. And it has sold it. And there's two stories going around right now. And it's hard to find details about each because the folks involved with that have not said publicly the details of the sale. So we don't know exactly where it went. We have some guesses. And there's two different stories rolling around. One is that it got sold to a nearby town to put in their local high school football stadium. That looks more and more like it's satire, according to a lot of people. The other story, which is a lot more dire and a lot more unfortunate, is that they sold the Ferris wheel to a traveling carnival group, like a Barnum and Bailey kind of thing, but not them. It's like a different company. But not to be used as it is, they sold it as parts so that the traveling carnival group can take parts from it to keep their own equipment functioning, which is a sad end to a Ferris wheel that had a big legacy in the state of Ohio, as far as I'm aware. It was pretty infamous in Cleveland, Ohio. Not, for bad things, but it was famous, the Red Zone Ferris wheel, and now it's going to be reduced, according to this story, to parts for repairs to other existing rides from a traveling carnival. And I don't know the exact story. Again, like that, everyone is being really tight-lipped, and there's many, many, many rumors going around. There are a lot of rumors, so I don't want you to take everything that I'm saying about this one as gospel, because I've tried to look it up. I've done many, many, many searches online, and I can't find the answer. It either comes back to one of those two stories. It comes back to one of those two stories, and that's unfortunate because I feel like the parts one is maybe the more accurate because the hallmark of excuse me had sneezes. The hallmark of the Hall of Fame has been shady deals and potential fraud. I talked in an episode not too long ago, a few episodes back, about how they're building a water park, and they're still going to build that, despite the fact that they don't want a carnival atmosphere. They're going to still build the water park. Okay, they've resumed construction apparently, but not too long after they said they were resuming construction, vandals broke in and caused hundreds of thousands worth of damage, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage. And that, it's been months now. It's been months, and there's been no resolution to that. The vandals have never been caught. No one has been charged. And it comes off more and more like an insurance claim scheme. Yeah, we'll send some people in here. We know when there's not going to be cameras on. We'll damage some stuff. We'll claim it was a break-in. Everybody will be paid off. It'll be fine. That's my theory. I can't prove it. I can't prove it. So again, don't take it as the absolute truth. And I won't lie to you. I'm not lying to you and telling you that that's exactly what happened. It's what I believe happened. If it ends up that that's not the case, I will retract it and I will 100% say, you know what, I had a bad take on that. But as far as it's not been refuted and it's not been disproven and no one has been charged with damaging the water park construction site, it stinks like an insurance scam. It stinks like one because if they've gone private, it means they can't accept government grants and government money to help them build it. They have to have private sources of funding, and I think they got desperate with how they were going to fund the thing. So the whole area of the Hall of Fame, plus the ride being sold as parts, all of that, it's it's just a local. I don't want to call it a scandal per se. I want to call it a sore point. It's a source of embarrassment at this point for the town, which is very unfortunate. It's a source of embarrassment. The Hall of Fame Village, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Let's talk about something else that's also an embarrassment. First off, I want to say the game itself is not an embarrassment. I'm impressed with it. I enjoy it. Let's talk about the recent release of Halo Campaign Evolved for video game consoles and PC. Halo has been a franchise for a long time. It helped launch the first Xbox system. It was console exclusive to Xbox for every single game until this one. You can find this one available on PlayStation, PS5, and on PC. And this game is a reimagining, recreation of the original game, which came out in like 2001, something like that, 2000, 2001, for the original Xbox. We are one, two, three consoles removed now from its original release. Now, the team that worked on Halo campaign evolved. The most recent release is called Halo Studios. It was created by Microsoft for Xbox. It's their own in-house, like, hey, you're making Halo games, that's all that you do. It was built from a previous studio that again was mostly just Halo games called 343 Studios, which was still part of Microsoft. It was owned by them, okay, subsidiary. I don't know why they changed the name, no particular reason. 343 evolved from the previous company that was actually the originator of Halo, which was a company we've talked about before who are having a lot of problems in the gaming industry right now. Bungie. Bungie Studios. Bungie's first game, I believe, was their first game, was Marathon Durandal. It was a single player campaign, okay, back in the PC days. It was before consoles. Their first big console hit was Halo with the original Xbox. They signed a deal with Microsoft. They signed up with Microsoft and they became one of the founding studios for the original Xbox. They created Halo, Halo 2, Halo 3, and then Halo Reach, which was a prequel to the whole franchise. And then they went independent briefly, very briefly. They went independent to as they were going to make Destiny, and they signed up with Activision. And Activision owned them for a little while while they worked on Destiny. Now, they've always said things like, "Oh, well, we're constrained by the companies that we work for and we have to do things that they want us to do, etc., etc." And it could be if they make decisions that we don't like, we have to go by that and all that kind of stuff. And we can't do things any different. However, there's a pattern with Bungie because after Activision, Bungie went independent again briefly before they were purchased by Sony. And now, since then, they've laid off most of their staff and they're completely neutered. They're a shell of their former self in many ways. And it's interesting because I noticed a pattern with Bungie. Okay, I have noticed a pattern with Bungie. Hold on a second. And the thing about it with Bungie, don't mind the sound there. I had to plug in my headset because it was making a beeping sound like it was running out of power. Bungie has always been the most immature studio that I've known in recent years to make games. And there's a lot of evidence for this. And what I didn't realize was that their fans, the people who are into Bungie as a studio that are they're gonna play every single game that Bungie puts out, regardless of what it is, are even worse. Let's follow the pattern here, okay? With Halo, I don't know if any of this kind of behavior was present during the old Marathon Durandal days. That wasn't online multiplayer because it was before that kind of thing happened. The first Halo was before a lot of that happened too. The first Xbox console really wasn't designed to go online. It could if you had just the right setup, but it wasn't meant to. But Bungie marketed the first Halo game. It was a first person shooter. You played a badass, like you were the Master Chief. You were a badass Spartan. You were above the rank and file. You were tough as nails. You always went in and you always came out. Okay? Which is fine because that's been a trope for first person shooters for a long time. Duke Nukem, Unreal, all this kind of stuff. The Doom guy, classically. Halo had, and I've only now seen the pattern now that there's all this evidence. Halo had levels and various names that were kind of immature and slightly like, oh, that's kind of unfortunate named. They have a skull. In Halo, in the various franchises, there's skulls you can collect in the various levels. They're collectibles, right? You can find hidden skulls that change the way the game plays. You can give yourself infinite ammo, or you can give yourself challenges, like the enemies are upgraded, and various things like that. There's a skull called I Would Have Been Your Daddy. Okay? And it unlocks rare dialogue and funny stuff that maybe the Marines or the enemy wouldn't say normally, but they'll say these weird off the wall, off color things. So it's funny. But the joke is, I would have been your daddy, but a dog beat me over the fence. Okay? That's the joke. And on one level, that's funny. It's like, okay, I come from the 90s. I come from, 80s stuff. I come from places where humor is like, you know, insults and whatnot, insult comedy. It can be funny if everyone is in on the joke. But Bungie assumed that everyone was in on the joke, and they weren't. Okay? This is just a mild example. They kept up in Halo 2 and Halo 3, they added online multiplayer because that was capable with the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One as they came out. And they encouraged things like trash talking. So when you're fighting against other teams, you'd say things online like, "Yeah, you suck. You're a piece of shit. Ah ha ha, I kicked your ass," that kind of stuff. And some of it is just whatever, posturing. But it was aimed definitely at a male audience of that kind of thing. And the more I look at it and the more I think about it, the more they never grew up. They never grew out of that male posturing kind of like attitude because they continued that kind of behavior with Destiny. And I've talked at length about my issues with Destiny. Destiny placed a huge emphasis on working in teams and working player versus player against each other. And it was encouraged to trash talk. It was encouraged to do things like teabagging. If you don't know what that is, you can look it up, but I recommend you don't. It's not a great culture. It's not good. It's bullying. It's harassment. It's awful behavior, and Bungie encouraged it. And they continued to encourage it in Destiny 2, which is why the game failed. People will say, oh, the game's a success. Look how many people are playing it right now. But the game was really falling apart, and the only reason people are now getting into it is nostalgia because of the fact that it's being shut down. The game itself, the servers are staying on, the lights are staying on, but it's getting no more content. It's getting no more updates unless they're necessary, like they're fixes for bugs that come up. And it's because of the Bungie attitude. It's because they, as a studio, refused to grow up, not as children, but they refused to grow past the the young male, immature sort of outlook. And I noticed something recently with the release of Campaign Evolved. Now, Campaign Evolved, like I said, is not created by Bungie. It's done by Halo Studios, which birthed from 343, which was Microsoft's replacement for when Bungie went off with Activision to make Destiny. They weren't making Halo anymore, but Halo was a Microsoft property, so they needed another studio to continue making Halo games. 343 made Halo 4, Halo 5, and Halo Infinite, which had varying levels of quality. Halo Infinite was not, what I would have hoped for, but I enjoyed all three of those games. But so Campaign Evolved. They've made changes visually. Okay? It's 2026. It's 25 years since the first game came out. Of course they're going to update graphics, they're going to change the way certain characters look. They're going to make changes. It's how things work, right? And I knew this was going to be a problem. I predicted this. They In the original game, the bridge crew and all of the Marines in the first game were all male, and the pilots were all female. Okay? It was an interesting, okay, well, that's what they did. And, there was no explanation for it, but that's just how it was. In Halo 2 and Halo 3, there was a mix of male and female in the basic squads and the command crew. Okay? So things were different in the following games, but just in the first game. So now that the game has been remade, the bridge crew in the cutscenes and in various play has been changed up a little bit. It's not just a bunch of pale faced dudes. It's a bunch of it's diverse. And I know that's a weird word for some people these days. Diversity is something people like, oh no, DEI and things like that. But you don't need to shy away from diverse things. When things are forcibly diverse to when they don't need to be, that's one thing. And I'm with you on that. But I'm not with you if you're trying to just. They remade the game from scratch. And they just threw in a mix of skin colors and genders and all that kind of stuff, which is fine. But that apparently has set off a firestorm among the fan base, which told me something about the fan base. Okay? I'm gonna pull up something here. I'm gonna name a page, but I'm not gonna name people involved because I don't like I said, I don't want to name and shame, and I don't want you going to this page and being like, "Oh, you're a bunch of jerks, you're a bunch of whatever." I don't want you to do that. I'm just gonna because this is the source that it came from. Um, this is a page called The Lounge, and they describe themselves as gaming, culture, tech, film, streaming, no apologies. Continuing, they say, calling out industry nonsense since day one. If it's good, we'll say it. If it's trash, we'll say it louder. Welcome to the lounge. It's a media news company, they say on Facebook. Okay. So they've been making posts about how apparently the diversity is bad. The diversity is a problem to these people. And let's take a look at one of the things that they said that I followed along with. They say that modern writers don't know how to write strong women without turning them into men. And they say, if I can continue looking for the right posts, they have a lot of them, and I have to scroll through because I'm not going to talk about every single one of them. Where are their Halo posts here? They say that the campaign changed a Bungie developer's face and that former Halo devs are calling out the rewrite. Again, these people are a new studio. They probably don't have any idea what Bungie did to generate their facial features. But apparently, on the bridge, in the opening cutscene of the game, there's a character at a console that's never named in the game. Okay? Never named in the game. You see him for a couple seconds while somebody else is leaning over them, and then it continues with the cutscene. The Red versus Blue online Halo cartoon called this character Vic and made him a character in their little show, but they weren't endorsed by Microsoft or Bungie or whatever, so it was just a fun little amusing side story. Apparently, the character was modeled after a Bungie employee at the time, a Bungie engineer. So it was meant to be a little cameo to kind of preserve the history of the studio. But now, in the campaign evolved, that character has been replaced with a dark-skinned female. And people are mad. And on the one hand, I could get it if they meant it on purpose, if they knew that, oh yeah, this person's face was always meant to be this other person's face, and so we've removed it, and now it's some nameless person that doesn't fit. But I don't think that was the case. I think they just didn't know. I think they wouldn't have cared because they're rebuilding the game from scratch. But because it's been replaced by a dark-skinned female, the lounge and various people that they report with have said that it's forced diversity. They say it's DEI. They say it's wokeness. They say it's all these awful words in favor of modern society. And they say at the end, at what point does modernizing an old game stop being a restoration and start becoming a rewrite? And the comments, you would think the comments would be like, you know what, that's kind of silly. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. The comments are 100%, for the most part, in the 90% and higher, supportive of the outlook that this was obviously wokeness, this was obviously DEI, this was obviously erasing a pale-skinned person in favor of a dark-skinned person. It's extremely bigoted. And the more I look at it, the more I had to realize that this is Bungie's fan base. The Halo fan base, the Halo fan base is not, for the most part, they're not necessarily just fans of Halo, they're fans of Bungie. Immature, didn't grow up, slightly bigoted. And that following continued through most of the Halo franchise and into the Destiny franchise. And that's the entire reason why Destiny has failed. It's why this game is getting quote unquote backlash because the original Halo fan base was a Bungie fan base. It wasn't a Halo fan base per se. It was a fan base of how Bungie did their business and talked the talk and walked the walk. And Bungie is a bunch of immature, childish bigots. I said it. Bungie is the original core Bungie team are childish bigots. And I think there's plenty of evidence to prove that. To be honest, I think there's plenty of evidence to prove that. Because Campaign Evolved is not bad. I do have some issues with it. I'm not going to say it's perfect. I think the way they re recorded some of the voice lines is kind of off. I think the way they addressed some characters is kind of off. But as a whole, it's a fun game. I think it's a faithful recreation. And I don't think diversifying the Marine squads with multiple women along with multiple men, mixing things up, I don't think that's wokeness. I don't think that's DEI. I don't think that's an attempt to erase men. And I'm not like a feminist person. I think that's clear. I think I don't go into movements like that. I'm not a feminist. I'm not a I don't get into that kind of stuff. I don't know where people are coming from. They're getting mad over things that aren't worth being mad about, you know? Just play the game. Just enjoy the game. Have fun with it. Have fun with it. Speaking of things that are different, that I like and yet don't like at the same time, let's continue with the theme of possible complaints, but also, that's pretty good. Hasbro has been on what they call the Apology Tour, which is based around the Transformers 1986 movie, the 1986 Transformers cartoon movie, where Optimus Prime had a death scene that was described by many as traumatizing as children. It was a dark movie. Compared to the cartoon, which was kind of like goofy at times, the movie was pretty dark. It's one of my favorite movies. But I like dark movies, so that makes sense. But Hasbro has been on what they call an apology tour for killing off Optimus Prime. And they've been doing a bunch of stuff because it's going to be the 40th anniversary. The 40th, my goodness, I'm so freaking old. The 40th anniversary of the Transformers movie. And so they're on this apology tour. They made a brand new soundtrack. They took the original songs from the soundtrack, which were a bunch of 80s bands that were not really well known necessarily, but it was pretty awesome. It made the movie. They contacted some of the original people and they got together and they redid the entire soundtrack with modern influence, modern instruments, modern mixing, and released it. And as soon as I saw it up for pre-order, I was like, I gotta have that. I gotta have it. I ordered the CD and I ordered the T-shirt, and I got them both recently. I'm wearing the T-shirt now, despite the fact that the soundtrack, the mix is kind of, I don't know, I don't think the mixing engineer was the best choice. It's mixed in a weird way. It sounds thin on some speakers. It sounds kind of like on some things, less impactful, I guess you could say. And they did a cover of Dare to Be Stupid, which is Weird Al's parody of Dare to Be Different from Devo. So it's a cover of a parody, which doesn't happen often. Occasionally it does, but it's not often. And it's okay. But at the very least, they probably could have contacted Mr. Yankovic and be like, hey, you want to reprise your vocals on this track? They didn't. And the people involved did an okay job. But because it's a cover of a parody, it's kind of strange. It's kind of strange. You know, it's a little strange. But all in all, it's decent. I like it. I like the shirt. Like I said, I'm wearing it right now. It's available now from multiple places. You can get the CD, you can get a variety of vinyl options, which I'm not into, from Raging Phoenix Records, I believe is the name. Raging Phoenix Records. But it is the 40th anniversary of the Transformers the movie, which I saw in theaters as a child. It came out in '86, and I saw it because it was a different time in the '80s. You could be like 3 years old, 4 years old, and your parents would take you to grown-up movies. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be a grown-up movie, but it ended up being a grown-up movie. The Transformers movie is very mature compared to the series. There's language, there's 2 points where there's swear words in there, and there's just deaths, flat out deaths going on. It's a dark movie. Absolutely. I saw that in theaters as a kid, and I saw the original 1989 Michael Keaton Batman in theaters. And I only remember the opening titles because I remember being in a dark theater and everything being dark around me and seeing that swoop through the logo where it's all made out of stone and everything as the music is playing and all that good stuff. It was a different time. The '80s were a different time. I'm sure it didn't traumatize me at all. But 40 years of Transformers, the movie. If you're not a fan, you're not a fan, and I get it. I'm a fan. I bought the 35th anniversary edition, I believe, Blu-ray because it was upscaled and a bunch of other good stuff. And the only previous copy I'd had was a VHS copy from way, way back. But if you're looking to see it, it is going to play in theaters again for the 40th anniversary sometime in the near future. I don't remember where, but look it up. Look it up on the internet. You'll be able to find it. A lot of nostalgia stuff is coming back. Mystery Science Theater finished a Kickstarter where they're going to be actual Mystery Science Theater rather than riff tracks. It's going to be Mike Nelson and the robots riffing on some films, and that's going to be in theaters. One of them is going to be in theaters, and the rest of them are going to be digital, I believe, and that's coming soon. So that's exciting. What else is going on? Oh, the local wildlife. I got stuff to say about them next week. The local wildlife they are having a crash out. The Hall of Shame page that I've mentioned that chronicles the various problems this one dude has with my local city council. He had an epic crash out tonight. Oh my goodness, he just went he went mad. He just flipped. He just flipped out completely. And I hate to see somebody fall apart in that fashion, but my goodness, he just ranted and raved and just spit all over the place. He was having a day. He was having a bad day. You could tell. But anyway, I think we're gonna wrap up. We're gonna be done. Have you played Halo Campaign Evolved? What do you think about it? Let me know. Toss me some comments. Drop some comments on Spotify or YouTube, or even go to my Facebook page. You'll be able to find me. I'm your good buddy Spider. Look for Uncanny Media. Look for Spider. You'll find me. Follow me there. Drop some comments. Say, hey, you know what? I like that game. Or, hey, I think that game was trash because of this. Tell me why you think DEI is ruining the Halo franchise. Tell me all about it. I'd love to hear your reasoning. You might even convince me. I doubt it, but I would love to hear it. That's not an invitation to get confrontational and to fight with me. Please don't come out thinking that we're going to have a fight, that we're going to have a flame war, that we're going to argue online with insults and swear words and blah, blah, because I'm not going to do that with you. I'm going to talk my position. I'm going to let you talk your position. And if you start getting belligerent and you start getting using language that demeans me in some fashion, I'm just going to block you. I'm just gonna, because I don't put up with abuse. I just don't. You can say what you want, and I don't care. You've got your First Amendment rights. You can say what you want, but I don't have to listen to it. I don't have to listen to it. Blocking you doesn't keep you from saying it. It just keeps me from seeing it. So I don't have to see it. But that's it. That's all we've got. Again, questions, comments, anything you want to tell me, I'd love to hear it. That's all. We're out. Have a good night.